technical glitches. So we decided to do it on
Which is why
Zoom.
we thought we'll try on Zoom and see how it works out. So how it goes is we have two stories that we pick out. We try to pick out very different stories, and today what we have, in fact, is one is an English story and a very well-known one, and one is from ancient Jain Tamil literature. So it's very different stories we've picked out. I hope you like it. They may be familiar, but storytelling is all about how we say it and the little bit of flavor that you get when you listen to somebody narrating the story. So, and of course, we'd love your feedback and suggestions for stories, or if you would like a particular kind of story, like folk tales. We plan to cover them, but I don't know how many we'll be able to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is generally the plan of Sugar and Spice. And we'll start right away. Let people join as they want to. Any comments you have, you can just put it down
On the
on the
chat
chat
box.
box. And we'll
Yeah.
have a discussion once it's done. If you want to discuss, that is. Okay. So yeah, Deepthi, over to you. Start.
Yeah. So shall we move on right now?
Yeah.
Or just directly?
If there's a noise, we can do it right now.
Not too loud. So hi everyone. Thank you so much. It's really nice to see so many people today who are really genuinely interested in listening to a
Important.
story. Yeah. So that's most important, more than anything else. So today I am here with a story which is quite popular. I'm sure you would have heard many Hollywood and Bollywood and Hollywood versions of this story. You would have heard it. For me, it was really a delight to be able to read the original of this story. So it's called The Gift of the Magi, and it's written by O. Henry, who is a very, very famous, as you all know, very famous short story writer. So this story happens in a very mediocre, very normal, ordinary apartment in New York City, and a couple who lives there. So the couple are Mr. James Dillingham Young and his wife Della.
Okay.
So they live there in this very, very humble apartment. They are a very, very young couple, so much in love with each other. So they're very rich in that way. But when it comes to financial stability, they're not so well off right now. But they are very, very happy, a very happy couple. And the story happens when it is the previous day of Christmas, the Christmas Eve. And like any other couple, Della wants to gift her husband something really, really special on Christmas. That's where the story begins. So Della is counting her savings penny by penny, the savings that she has, taken so much effort to save by arguing with the butcher and the vegetable seller and the grocer. She has gathered each penny, and when she counts it, she doesn't count it once, she counts it thrice. But she comes up with an amount which really disappoints her. It's only $1.87 that she could save. And with that money, she was so sure that she could hardly buy anything worthwhile of Jim, because Jim was such a sweet and loving husband, and nothing she could buy, or which was of his worth with this money. So what she does is what any helpless woman would do at that point. She sat down and she started to cry. So she was sobbing and sniffling for so long, and then finally she just settles down. She just looks at herself, at her reflection on the glass for some time, and suddenly an idea strikes her. And she just gets up. She, as if she understood what to do, she knew what to do. She just removes the clip from her hair, and her hair falls down to almost below knee length. She had lovely hair. Della had really, really lovely hair. And looking at it, Della immediately knew what she was going to do to get the love of her life, the gift she wanted to give. So she immediately powders her face because she's been crying for such a long time, and she grabs her overcoat and the hat, and she gets out of her apartment to leave and get what she wants for her husband as a gift. So once she gets out of the house, she walks down the street for a while. She walks for a while and she sees this signboard which says, Madam Sofroni, hair goods of all kinds. Okay, so she's a person who obviously buys hair. So she runs up the stairs and she reaches the salon, and she sees a lady who's large, who's really, really firm looking. She doesn't look anything like her name. Like her name is Sofroni, but it doesn't
Feel it. Nothing
yeah.
soft about her.
Yes.
Okay.
So she looks at her and says, Madam Sofroni, and she says, yeah. And she asks, do you buy hair? He said, yes, I do. Did you buy my hair? She asks her. So Madam Sofroni replies, yes, can I have a look at it? I do buy hair, but I need to see it. So she shows her hair, and it's so beautiful. She has brown, long hair. And Madam Sofroni immediately says, $20. Take it or leave it. So Della says, please give it to me at once. And she sits there and she sells her hair. Now, the author goes on to tell us that there were two prized possessions that these two, the husband and wife, they had two prized possessions. One was, of course, like I said, Della's beautiful hair, and the other was a beautiful gold watch which Jim had, which was given to him by his father and it was passed over to him by his grandfather. So it was an ancestral property. It was very, very precious to him. So these were the two prized possessions that both of them had. So Della is done with selling her hair to Madame Sofroni and collecting the $20 from her. She rushes back to a store which she had already decided that she is going to buy Jim's gift from. So she went there and she buys this beautiful platinum chain for uh, Jim's watch. And then once she gets it, she is the happiest person in this world. She buys it for $21. So she gets it and she rushes back home. So once she's reached home, she's directly goes and looks at herself in the mirror. And she feels really, really bad because she's always loved her hair. And Jim has also liked it so much. And she was so skeptical about how Jim is going to react. In the story, she says, I hope Jim is not going to kill me. So, but she knew that Jim would not mind because it was for such a reason she wanted to get him a gift. So she gets the curlers and she sets her hair and she sits there waiting for her husband, Jim. So Jim, he never comes home late, they say, and he's on time and he reaches the door. And as soon as Della hears his footsteps, she runs to the door, ready to welcome him. Jim steps in, takes one look at Della, and he has this very, very different expression on his face. Della is not able to read it. It is not anger, or it is not disappointment, or it is nothing which Della expected. It's not surprise. So it's more like a blank expression which Della couldn't read. So she looks at him for a while and says, come on, Jim, don't look at me like that. I sold my hair all right, but I sold it for you. It went for you. Say Merry Christmas, my darling, and please come and see what I've got for you. And Jim still looked as if he couldn't digest the whole fact of what has happened. He just looks around and he says, you mean to say your hair is gone? It's not there? You cut your hair? So she says, yes, it's cut and gone and I sold it. But I sold it for you. It went for you. And I'm the same. There is no difference with hair or without hair. I'm the same me. So uh, just don't bother about that. Come, let us celebrate Christmas. Shall I fix dinner for you? She asks. So with a faint smile on his face. He sits down on the couch. He has kind of come into terms with the reality. So he sat down on the couch and he says, "No, no, silly. I'm not the kind who would worry about my girl's appearance. No, that's definitely not the case. But the expression that maybe you saw on my face, I was definitely taken aback. But there's a reason for that." And he takes out a nice brown packet from his pocket and hands it over to Della. So Della takes it. "Oh, what is this?" Della takes it and slowly opens it to find a beautiful set of combs. So she just gives out an ecstatic joy of, cry of joy, and she just couldn't believe that this was hers. This was something she had seen on a Broadway window, and she had wanted it so very much, but it was so expensive that she just couldn't afford it. And now it was hers. But suddenly she just starts crying, realizing the fact that the tresses that were supposed to adorn these beautiful combs are gone. So these combs, the description of these combs are so beautiful that anyone who reads it really will have tears in their eyes. Made of pure tortoise shells, and it had jeweled rims them, and it
Really
was so
beautiful.
beautiful. And it would have looked fantastic on Della's beautiful hair, but Della just looks at them, hugs her gift, and says, "But you know what, Jim? My hair grows awfully fast. Don't worry." And then she just remembered something. Jim had not seen his gift, right? So she just picks it up and gives it to him. Says, "Your watch. I want to see how this chain looks on your watch." And that's when Jim gives a smile and says, "You know what, Della? Let us just put our Christmas presents aside. It's not the right time for them, you see. For I sold my watch in order to get you these beautiful combs. I did not have the money. So I had to sell my watch. So we both have done the same thing, and it is Christmas. So let us just forget about the presents. Let us just fix ourselves dinner. Let us just be happy." They both hug each other and just start crying. They just know that they love each other so much that these material things didn't matter. I want to come back to the title, The Gift of the Magi. Now, Magi were, as you many of you would already know, Magi were three wise men who brought gifts for baby Jesus when he was born. And it, according to history, they started the tradition of giving gifts. So the author says that if they were wise and they were the wise men who started giving gifts, these two married children, he says, they were so innocent and they were so much blinded by each other's love. They were the actual wise, and they were not foolish, they were more wise, and they were the Magi. That is why the author has titled this The Gift of the Magi. And more than anybody else who would have ever given gifts, these were the most wise of them all, he says. So that is one story which really touched me. I hope you all also liked it, and it's a wonderful story to read too, so I would
Yes.
recommend that.
It's one of those
You all,
stories that brings tears to the eyes.
yes, very
It,
touching story, very classic, which most of them would have read, but it's, every time you read it, it's a different feeling altogether.
absolutely.
I hope you all liked it. Thank you so much.
And do send your messages. We'll get to the discussion once we finish with the next story. Like I said, we are running against time here. The story that I'm going to tell you is completely different. This one is from India, but when I say it's an Indian story, it is from ancient India. So I'm sure many of you would have already heard the story, different versions of the story. The one that I'm going to speak on today is from ancient Tamil literature, and this one is from the Silapadigaram, which you must have heard. And the very title, it is so beautiful. It's in the form of a poem, the original piece. I'm looking at the name because I don't want to make mistakes with the pronunciation. Yes, it was written by a prince by the name of Ilango Adigar. So, Silapadigaram, as the name goes, is the story of an anklet. Silamba in Tamil means anklet, and this is a lovely, romantic, tragic love story. As you can see, love stories are somehow usually tragic. As we when we look at stories, right? And this we're talking about a story from the fourth BC, that old. It is really that old, and it's about this very very ordinary couple, Kannagi and Kovalan. Kannagi belonged to a family, a rich merchant's family, and she was a daughter of a rich merchant whose marriage was arranged with Kovalan, a young man from yet another rich merchant family. And this whole story started out in the place called Pohar, and from there we have the story where Kannagi, who is a very young girl, who has been trained how to be a virtuous wife. So you see, these were unspoken rules that were given to a young girl right from, trained. She's trained very early so that she makes a good wife who follows all the rules, who upholds her husband's family's name. And these are the things that are drilled into the girls when they get married. So she was ready for that. And this lovely Tamil beauty. So when you think of Kannagi, I always picture her the way we saw her from, the old Amar Chitra Katha comics. I'm sure many of you would have gone over them where, she has these long black tresses and she has these large, beautiful eyes, coal-lined eyes, dusky skin, dusky, flawless skin with this diamond nose ring, pierced on her nose. A very beautiful picture that comes to mind, and extremely beautiful, voluptuous, anything that you can add to imagination, she had it. And she got married to Kovalan, and they moved into a blissful domestic life, you could say, where she did everything that a virtuous wife had to do. So Kovalan had nothing to complain about. But then that's where the story begins, because Kovalan happens to meet this beautiful courtesan by the name of Madhavi, and he falls headlong into love with her. He's crazy about this woman, and he's so bewitched by her beauty, her skills. We should remember that wasn't just then, but throughout, when we look at literature, especially in Indian mythology, courtesans were always women who were trained and skilled in the art of not just seduction and love making, but also in, they could discuss politics. They were able to sit and have conversations. And the king had very special courtesans whom he referred to even for political details. So she was one such, and Kovalan was not even a king, but he was in love with Madhavi, and they had an affair which happened literally under the nose of poor Kannagi, who was a virtuous wife, a virtuous girl, but she was not skilled in the art of fighting a courtesan for her husband's attention. So he actually moved in with this Madhavi and they had a very close relationship, Madhavi and Kovalan, and in fact, they even had a child, a daughter, with that union. But our story is about Kannagi, the wife, and she suffered by herself. Nothing she said could bring her husband back, and she continued being virtuous, looking after the family, upholding the family name. So there was nothing she did that could blemish her character. But something happened even when this was going on. With all this suffering, she also had Madhavi's mother, who realized that this was a place where she could make money. So the courtesan's mother, on the sly, without the knowledge of her daughter and her lover, used to come to Kannagi's house and extort money from her under one pretext or the other. We need money, your husband is there with us, we are poor, we need money to survive, and so on. And Kannagi, and she would tell her things in a way that she felt threatened, because Kannagi knew that even though people knew about this affair, they pretended they didn't know about it, so that was okay. Because if people got to know of it, it would be extremely shameful for her if people started talking about it. So, out of respect for her and her family, people didn't. So she kept paying her off, and very soon her funds were completely depleted. Now, on this side, when Kanagi lost all her wealth, on the other side, Kovalan had spent every bit of his ancestral wealth on this courtesan, her likes, on her jewels. And one fine day, he realized he had nothing left. And when he was in this vulnerable state, he started suspecting her as well. Even though Madhavi was loyal to him, he suspected her of showering attention on other men. So this created a problem. It was bound to happen, a relationship like this, which was founded on insecurity. So they broke up, and he left her and came back to his wife, who was the only person who would accept him. And she actually accepted him. I know it's a little difficult for us to believe these days, but she did. She accepted him. Now, one way of looking at it is we could say that, okay, she was a loser. But then, no. The thing is, so she said, it's okay. You've come back to me now. Let's make a fresh start. And so they left the city and they moved towards Madurai. Now, they didn't have any wealth. They were too proud to ask their rich parents for wealth. So what they did was, when they reached the outskirts of Madurai city, Kannagi took off one of the anklets that she wore. Now, we are talking about the old anklets, which were these thick molded gold rings which were filled with priceless jewels, and hers was filled with rubies. So she told him, go to the market and try to get a good price for this. We'll start afresh with this. Never mind what happened before. So once they agreed on this, Kovalan took this priceless bit of jewelry and approached the royal goldsmith in Madurai. Now, what had happened there was the royal goldsmith had already stolen the queen's anklet, which looked a lot like this. It was the same, it looked the same. So he had been looking out for a scapegoat and a way out. So when he saw Kovalan with this anklet, he accused him of stealing the queen's anklet and took him to the royal darbar. Now, the king, who was already in, as I said before, a vulnerable position here because it was a dance festival that was going on, and there were a lot of pretty dancers, and the king had been eyeing them. So the queen hadn't liked that, and so she had got up and protested and walked out, complaining of a fictitious headache. So the king was trying to make the queen feel better. So when he at this point, this was a point when the goldsmith rushed in saying, look, I found the person who stole the queen's anklet. So the king, without thinking for a minute, said, oh, you did? It looks the same. It is the anklet. Off with his head. Now, the king doesn't usually dole out. The Pandyan king, who was a king at that time, the Madurai city, was a king who was very just, but he wasn't thinking. At that time, he was too emotionally, he was going through this huge upheaval. He didn't know what was going on. So he said, it's okay. Just, I want this man executed. How dare he steal the queen's anklet? And that's what happened. Without any trial, with no chance of trying out for, proving his innocence, Kovalan was beheaded. Now, when this news reached Kannagi, that simple demure girl, virtuous wife, turned into a woman of absolute fury. She was extremely angry because this is a woman who was already wronged, and this was her one chance of starting out in life again. And this was it was something she couldn't take. So she rushed out the way she was, with her hair strewn down. That the picture we see of Kannagi always is the portrayal is of a woman with hair right down to her feet. She's not didn't doesn't even take time to dress. She was a married woman after all. And in the way she was at home, she rushed out and she asked for an audience with the king. The king did grant that, and she went in and asked him, how could you kill my husband? He's innocent. That was my anklet that you've taken from him. So the king said, no, it's the queen's. So then she looked at the king with absolute hate and said, would you describe the queen's anklet to me? What is it filled with? Because the anklets those days, the thick, good ones, had jewels in them. She said, what was that, the queen's anklet filled with? And the king said, they were filled with pearls. And she shouted at the king and said, exactly, mine is filled with rubies. And she hurled her anklet so hard onto the ground floor of the palace, that it uh, broke open and shattered, and a lot of rubies, sparkling red rubies, just fell out of the anklet and, kind of just splattered all over the palace floor. The king was shocked. He couldn't believe that he had done something which was unthinkable. he had killed an innocent man, and that was something he had never done before. And it is said, as the poem goes, that he had a massive heart attack, I'm sure, at that point of time, and died on the spot. And the queen fell unconscious beside him. But Kanagi's rage did not come down. Like all the goddesses that we read about, her wrath was already out and she had turned into almost something like a monster. And it is said that she pulled out her left breast, this virtuous woman, and flung it down on the floor, cursing the city, the king, the people, and everything went up in flames. There's another version of the story that says that she was blessed with this boon to bring out a fire whenever she could by the sun god, but I would prefer to go with this version. And because of her virtuousness, her anger was very real. She was unblemished. So the entire city burnt down. And she continued on her rampage and moved on to other cities until the goddess Meenakshi is descended from heaven and calmed her with the promise that you can go to heaven right away and you can be reunited with your husband, the Kovalan that you love so much, whom you love so much. And that is when she calmed down and she ascended to heaven and they lived happily ever after in heaven, if you could say that. But there's a story of karma where, one wrong deed begets a wrong. And there is another story which goes to say that Kovalan in his previous life had killed or murdered Kanagi's husband and she had to give her life up, in her lost love. So, which is why he was beheaded in this particular birth for no reason at all. And of course, his mistakes, right? And about a man who had two women who loved him. The courtesan loved him too, and she's said to have left her material life and joined a monastery after this. And his wife, who had the same, who he couldn't really live with. So that's a lovely story of Kannagi, so many different versions. I've just picked out what I found interesting and put it together as a story. And there the story ends. Yes, I could go on and on about it, but I think we have limited time. So, what would you like to say? Did you like the story? I'd like you to share your comments.
You've all muted yourself very sweetly. But
no, I muted
them. You muted them? Okay, I thought they muted themselves.
Yeah, you can unmute yourselves
no,
and
you
talk.
Can, okay, is there an
they can also do this the option, right? They can, yeah. How did you like the stories?
The lovely stories, Srija, especially yours brought back memories of the Amar Chitra Katha, which I read many years back. So felt like the lane looking at those pictures. Thanks for reviving memories.
I know those books are kind of imprinted in our minds, and such lovely pictures. I used to love looking at the pictures of the apsaras that they had in so beautifully drawn.
The best part is even today, our children do the same.
Urvashi, one called Urvashi.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
One Apsara called Urvashi who looked beautiful in the Amar Chitra Katha.
Oh yes, Urvashi, my God. And you don't forget the stories because you've read those, it just stays on in your mind. Yeah. Who else? Anything about the story? I just read it out.
In tears.
Sai, are you in tears?
Ani says, two beautiful stories. Thank you. Thank you.
Very much. Very much.
Joining us. Thank you, Anita.
Hi. Anita. Okay. She's frozen.
Yeah, video. Thank you, Anita.
Why switch on the lights, no? Can't see you. Switch on the lights.
Storyteller herself.
Why don't you switch on the lights? No? Yeah. So
Anita liked the story.
Yeah. So how did she like the stories?
She said to
I joined actually. I thought the meeting started at 5:30, so I joined at 5:50. Actually, by the time
I was halfway through.
Yeah, yeah. Gift of Magi was halfway through.
We usually do it at 5 because we presume that at least that is the time when on Saturday evenings, right? That's the time when
yes,
can
my
join.
mistake.
But thank you so much. Thank you for joining.
I'm glad you like the stories. We plan to. Do you have any ideas of the kind of stories that you'd like to hear?
Yeah, the same kind. In fact, the one Gift of Magi I had studied at school, but I never thought about the meaning of Magi. Actually,
Right,
it's only when the
same
explained that I could understand. Yeah. And
I've heard it as
Chilappatikaram.
prose, but yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Then Chilappatikaram story also, I had forgotten all the finer details. Only knew the names of the main characters, and
Yes.
that Kannagi was angry for something. I had forgotten all about the story. Thank you for narrating it.
I'm so happy you
Very
liked it.
simple
I've
thing.
always been fascinated with the description of the anklet, That is what I've loved in the story. And the fact that something could be filled with jewels. I mean,
Yes.
we are talking
Yeah.
about something which is so exquisite, at that point of time.
Yeah, that's true. And these rubies, nobody's going to see them ever. It is inside, and
Exactly.
still they are filled with such precious jewels.
Absolutely. Now, also, I suppose it was meant like some kind of thing used to be used on a rainy day, which is what they do. I mean, jewelry, I think in the Indian concept is very often a backup that you keep when everything else goes
Yes.
wrong. A woman has something to fall back on.
That's
a lot
true.
of old,
That's
very sensible kind of. But the thing is, the story of Kannagi, I was appalled by the idea that she could accept her philandering husband back. That's what you always. I think that's one way of looking at it. It's more about the fury of the woman who's wrong. Then maybe that's her frustration that you find. And all our Devis, when you look at them, they all have what you call this Rudra form, no? This
Yes.
form where they have some, it's almost
the Durga form. Yeah, right.
the Durga form,
Yeah.
which becomes calm. So many different, versions of a woman, which is so fascinating.
That's
that
true.
kind of thing.
Yeah, even this Kannagi story, we have women's festivals in Kerala, in Trivandrum and in Kodungalur as well.
Yes.
And it is said that both these temples are dedicated to Kannagi actually. Kannagi is the
Absolutely,
deity
you're
there.
right. You're right. There are a couple of temples. I didn't mention it. So she is revered as a devi of steadfastness, of loyalty,
Yes.
strong, who stands for what is virtuous. A
That's
virtuous
true.
wife. A lot of high standards to follow, but they are there. So nice. I'm glad you liked it. What about the rest of you? Mithun, anything to say?
Start reading more of our Chitrakatha stories.
It
I haven't
brings to
read any
mind,
books
right?
since this is so fascinating actually.
Louder,
I
Mithun,
mean,
I
yes,
can't hear you.
sorry, I'm saying both the stories were really fascinating. Srini, yours is actually, I kind of, never knew, the story behind Kannagi. That was actually pretty interesting. That says that I need to start reading.
Yes, I mean, when you think back of the, and what is fascinating is we plan to cover some Greek stories as well. You'll find a lot of similarities in all the old mythological stories,
That's true.
where you have, and of course, there's a lot interesting, a lot of other, very, very human-like gods, which is so easy to, people, gods who are easy to relate to. Because
Yeah.
you can see yourself
Very
in
human
them.
qualities. Yeah.
Absolutely. And why not? It's easier to believe something like that, right? Than something which is
That's
totally, not tangible. These are people you can actually believe in. I mean, we don't have to
That's
go
true.
far. All the gods are like that. So,
It's
but
easier when gods become like humans rather than when humans become like gods.
Yes,
That is difficult to
yeah.
follow.
The first one is more believable, I think.
That's true. That's true.
And type go to Kerala, sir.
Anything else, Vineet? Anamika?
Yeah.
Not really, Srija. I think even in today's context, and the men, I'm sure, will be very offended with what I have to say, but a woman is far more forgiving of a man's infidelities than a man would be of a woman's, waywardness. That is a sad fact of life. And in fact, I think if you watch a lot of TV serials today, they show the woman being very educated, very progressive in her thinking. But when her husband strays, she may weep, she may, reject him for a while, but ultimately she takes him back. And that's something which I find very difficult to accept.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. But I suppose when you see these things, one way I suppose, Anamika, is to say that Kannagi had never really been given a chance to, she was in love with her husband, and emotional attachments are not very easy to get rid of. So that's when you pretend, you close your eyes to what's happening and say, okay, fine, it's all right, I'll take you back, kind of a thing. So, yeah, what about the men? You don't have anything to say?
Probably she would have decided to do something, after once they start afresh. all the punishments would have come, but she never got a chance.
Yeah, that's another way. That's another story, Anamika.
My way of looking at it, maybe.
And the men in the group are okay with nothing to say. Yeah, you feel outnumbered, I suppose. No?
Yeah,
No, in my
exactly.
story, both
Yeah.
were equally balanced. So,
Yeah.
you know.
Vinny? Yes.
No, I've not read anything except Harry Potter, so everything is new to me.
So this is a new, it's
Yes, so
educated.
Yeah, and
you should be there in all our sessions.
Yes.
so after a very long time, I'm listening to stories. My grandmother used to tell me stories when I was like 5, 6. After that, I've not listened to any stories. I like watching movies. I like
Yeah.
seeing new things. So this is new to me, and it's good actually. It's easy to listen to a story rather than read it. So
Yeah.
I like it.
And you can always add your own little masala to the story. That's something I found fascinating.
No, I don't like masala. This is straightforward things I like. So this is,
He's very clear about that. You wouldn't know, Vineet, if I added masala, so it's a different matter.
yeah, that's there because I don't know. No, so
Yeah.
yeah.
No, wait, that's what this oral tradition of storytelling has been a very, very common thing in India, not just India, and many of the other, all over the world. And that is an art where people are really, there's so much that comes out in these stories, and that's what we are hoping to revive. It's already begun. There are lots of people. We have a professional storyteller on a group right now.
Yes.
So she knows about it. But we hope you enjoy it and you join us for more sessions, because I don't know when this
Sure.
is going to get disconnected.
No, today they have
No,
taken
Yeah,
Zoom.
Srija, and
40 minutes.
maybe one suggestion, maybe you can think of some stories with humor as well. So that
Definitely,
people
that would
go
be,
with
yeah.
a laugh or a smile.
Be one of
Alina, you missed the last time I had this lovely story by Roald Dahl, if you remember, Lamb to the Slaughter. He has this
Oh,
weird
Yes,
sense
yes,
of humor, and it's
Yeah.
that was really
That-
his
that-
story.
that's a
funny.
sweet
It
story,
wasn't
actually.
funny.
It was creepy.
No, I
That's a
usually
very
am.
creepy story.
Oh my
Very
god.
creepy.
No, Alina, I
Yeah.
usually go for the creepy. I held myself back today, but I shall get on to them.
No,
in the
I told
course.
Srija no creepy stories this time. She's so good at it.
I didn't realize I had a talent for it till people told me, because I myself hate watching horror films. I don't watch them, but I didn't know I have this talent of relating it so well. So we'll pick out something different, and we hope to get something very distinctly different and unique. So that's what we
Sure.
plan to do. So any
Have you
suggestions?
been doing this for long? Have you been doing this for a
No,
long
Parna,
time?
we've just started. This is the second session. Anita, sorry, we
Oh,
started
okay.
the second session.
Yeah, this
so-
is our second
Okay.
session. And it's
Okay,
just like
good.
two friends sitting together, telling stories
Yeah.
and just getting more friends to listen
Yeah.
to.
And people
Very
who are
good.
interested,
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Better
yeah,
to
sure.
have a few
sure.
people